Hello audience, today I'm here to talk about Fathers of Nations again, chapter 11. I hope you're fine and you had a good day. So, when we talk about chapter 11, I call it conspiracy. Why do I call it conspiracy? It's a time when the four have to meet with the Longway alongside Abiola, and they have to make a decision about Path Alpha and Way Omega in a way that is a scheme, kind of. So it's a conspiracy between among the four plus the two, so that they have to win Path Alpha. Now, when we start this chapter, we realize that Chamaka had planned to meet the president. He had gone through the pinnacle of security matters successfully, and he was finally going to meet the president. His intention was that he meets the president, he greets him, then when he greets him, he sticks on his hand, and then he tells him, what is your name? Why did he want to do so? He wanted to disapprove the president that not everybody in Nigeria knows him. Now, Chamaka's plans fail, and so he's quite annoyed. When he goes back to the room, the guide calls him. Now, when he receives this call, he's quite annoyed, and the guide is happy about it because, remember, as I said earlier, he's a sadistic man. He calls also the Kimani, he calls Melusi and Tahir, as obvious. He calls them and tells them that they are going to have a meeting in room 2059. Now we realize that Longway was already aware of what is going to happen, and therefore he goes to the meeting earlier than the rest of the four. They had some formalities or some discussions to hold before the four came in. Now, the author gives us quite a description about the four. That is Kimani, Melusi, Chamaka, and Tahir. Tahir is not quite happy about his artificial eye, as obvious. We have seen throughout the book that is in desperation as a result of that artificial feeling that does not satisfy him about the eye that he lost once in an accident, in quotes. Now Chamaka as well is not happy. As I told you, he had not made it in his intention. We also see that Melusi is seeing a reflection, a photo kind of the Ziliza. Remember the wife he lost during the Chumuraga, the group that was initiated by the president. And so he is aiming to pay back, because he says the wife is begging wordlessly for revenge on whoever was responsible. So as we go through this chapter, we will see that once they get to the meeting, the four are shocked to learn that it was Abiola who was terrorizing them all this time as a guide. It is now time they learn about him, and the mystery is now open. And once they get to the discussion, Abiola tells them that they have to be careful about Path Alpha and Way Omega. And having read the two, he thinks that they should really reflect on Path Alpha, because they have suffered a lot of problems in past, and this one is the only strategy that is going to save them from their problems. Now we can get to thematic concerns, and I believe we don't have a lot of themes in this chapter. The major theme that I saw was technology, and technology comes where we have the artificial eye that our beloved Tahir does not really like, even up to now, as shown on page 145. If you check on page 144, I think you'll also see the theme of revenge. Why? We see that our own comrade Melusi intends to revenge the death of Ziliza, because he believes that she is begging wordlessly that the man responsible for the death has to die. So obviously you should be seeing that he's reflecting on what to do. Now, character and characterization. I realize that we have Pastor Chamaka, who is quite scheming. He made it to go through the those clearances, security clearances at Pinnacle successfully, until he only had the challenge where the president had gone to take a nap, as shown on page 141. He's also temperamental, quite temperamental, a Nigerian man here. He's when he's talking to guide, he's not, he shows his anger until the guide realizes it. He even threatens that he'll call the media to reveal whoever this guide calls himself, as shown on page 142. Now, the other character that we can discuss here is Afolabi. Afolabi is very knowledgeable. He is aware that the president of Gambia must have decided intentionally not to be the chair. And he also knows about both Way Omega and Path Alpha, and understands that we have self-interest in the nation. The host refusing to be the chair is because he did not want to spoil his image to the world, as shown on page 147. He's also tactful. Remember, he took a lot of time before the four knew who he actually was. He's sadistic. He enjoys every moment when Tahir is annoyed on phone, and he even says jokes about the fear that he had in his throat. You can check that on page 145. And again, when you look at the part of where he expresses joy about the possible failure in which Comrade Melusi experienced in the morning, he says, "You almost failed this morning, comrade, didn't you?" Yeah. So when you look at that kind of talk, it means he's quite sadistic. We have Engineer Tahir himself. Engineer Tahir is quite emotional, as you can see when he looks at the photo of Ziliza. He notices that Ziliza is urging for revenge, and he plans that possibly something has to be done. We have to go to language and stylistic devices, and I believe the key one that I can start with is dialogue. We have a number of dialogues in this chapter. For example, we see that Pastor Chamaka talks to the guide, and he shows his anger as he is beating himself about failing to have made it. We have also another dialogue that happens between Kimani and the caller. You know, Kimani is called, and he's informed about the room where the meeting will be happening. Then we have some sort of rhetorical questions, like page 141. You'll see this question: if the accident was in fact a trap and it sprung a mad gunman on them, who would come and from where to bail them out? On page 145, we have another question: what was it that he had done but had not? Then we have direct address. Longway is addressing the four. So we see that he's talking to them and they are not responding. We also see that Abiola addresses the rest in the meeting, telling them about Path Alpha, Way Omega, and allowing them to choose whichever way they think is suitable. There is flashback. Flashback comes where Comrade Melusi is in bed, and then he sees the photo of Ziliza and reflects on how she died as a beautiful woman at 50, and that is on page 143. We also have suspense, because it is in this chapter that we don't know what the four strangers will decide. We are not told. By the time we reach 148, we are just left in suspense. We also can have other styles, maybe. As the audience, you are free to give other styles that you may come up with. But I believe it would be unfair for me to not talk about these other styles like irony, because I believe in this chapter Chamaka plans to meet the president, and embarrassing, yet the presidents go and have a nap, as shown on page 141. Onomatopoeia, obviously in paper 2, is very important as a style the students must know. We have words like staggered, sneakered on page 147, and staggered on page 145. Then you can see hyperbole. We are told that his voice was all syrup and honey, page 142. We have imagery. Imagery, a style that I like breaking down, because students sometimes, when they are told to establish imagery even in comprehension, they may not make it. If you look at this chapter, we have vivid description. The vivid description where we are told about Comrade Melusi in bed, flat on his back, and then he was daydreaming about Ziliza, who had been the most beautiful woman on earth. He was telling himself. That is page 143. We also see that we are given description of Kimani, who was brushing his teeth, and then he was ready for bed, and there was a mirror before him showing him everywhere. And what do we see? We are told that his belly hung over his belt like a half-empty sack, loose. He tried to suck it in, it stayed put. His face had wrinkles like a dry prune, too full of skin, and on the left and the right sides of his nose, down to the left and right corners of his mouth, it was loose. He tried to smile them away. They refused to leave. That is page 144. Oh my. If that is what actually Asiya was experiencing, I don't want to say what exactly I was to say here. Then we have Engineer Tahir. We are told that he was set to turn in. Still, a nagging thought kept crisscrossing his mind. And as might a mosquito, determined to suck a bit of his blood before letting him wave it away. Page 145. We have similes like Tahir has an eyelens socket. Tahir has an eyeless socket, a lens like cap over the filler of the hole. Page 145. Then we have Kimani's belly hung over his belt like a half-empty sack. Page 144. We have a nagging thought kept crisscrossing Tahir's mind as a mosquito determined to suck a bit of his blood, letting him wave it away. Possibly this is to suggest the depressive state he's in. Then we are told that Kimani's face was what? Head wrinkles like a dry prune, as shown on page 144. I really like it. I really like talking about Fathers of Nations, Parliament of Owls, An Artist of the Floating World, and The Samaritan, among other books that I've read, because literature is just life and it's quite interesting. Goodbye for now. Feel free to subscribe to my channel Edutainment for Us for further education. We are not only basing on books, we have a lot of stuff to talk about, and you can share, you can view, you can as well critique using the comments below, so that I realize what I can add to make this a more educative and informative session for all of us. Bye bye for now. Till next time, we will be looking at the next chapter, so that we continue learning more about Fathers of Nations. That is chapter 12 that will be coming.